Welcome back to Simple Truth. We're in the story of David and Goliath, and we're in verse 20. And I'm probably going to get stuck here, but we'll try. We'll try really hard to go forward. Here's the simple truth: when's the last time you got up early in the morning to fulfill God's plan for your day? Or not when's the last time you got up and it was early. When's the last time that you got up early? When's the last time that the alarm says you need to get up at 6 and you get up at 5:30? When's the last time that the alarm said you need to get up at 5 and you get up at 4:30? When's the last time that you got up early for the work of the Lord that day? Not you got up early in the day for the Lord's work, but you intentionally, you were ahead of schedule, you're ready to go. Right? There is great value in being prepared for the work that God has for us this day. Oh, maybe for the next day or the next day. Did you know that God would call you aside to prep you for what He has for you? And that preparation may not look anything like you think it should. It might look like rest. Do you know that if God knows He's got a day coming up where you're going to be beaten up, He might say to you, can you take this half a day and just rest? Can you take the extra time I'm going to give you right now and just rest? Could you do that? Could you rest by reading my scripture? Could you rest by worshiping me? Could you be prepared for what's coming? Do you know that sometimes God tells me what's coming, and my preparation consists of worrying about what's coming? Do you know the preparation should consist of? Worship. Lord, I know what's coming. Let me worship you. Lord, I know what's coming. Let me pray. Lord, I know what's coming. Let me get in your word. Lord, I know what's coming. Let me spend time with you. But lots of times we know what's coming and we spend time with people over God. I need more time, God. I need more time with people. And God's like, no, the battle that you're going to be facing is you and me versus Goliath. Not you and me and everybody else. Listen, every great warrior had an armor bearer. Twos is the thing, right? But do you know what the armor bearer did? The armor bearer stood and watched the other guy fight. Held the stuff. Lifted him up. I've talked about this before. Let me tell you again. I really stink at being an armor bearer. Not good at it. Yet God's calling me to do that all the time. And He's giving me lessons constantly to teach it. He's saying, Annie, I know you want to protect, but I protect. You need to be the one that's praying for the protection. Keep your eyes open. Because you know what happens when I get angry and frustrated and upset? My eyes get a little bit more closed. Right? You get mad, you get angry, you get the scrunchy face thing, and you're not seeing everything. Do you know what the problem is? In any given moment, I'm not looking for what God's doing. I'm looking for what's happened and what I'm doing. So I get mad at things because I'm just looking at it from my perspective. And God's like, if you'd shut up for a second, open up your eyes, I'd show you what I was doing, that it wasn't the way you thought it happened. Do you know the easiest way to forgive people and move on in life is just stopping to go, maybe God had something in that moment. Maybe God called the person away from them. And maybe God was protecting me in that moment. Not everybody who runs away from you is dissing you. Sometimes they're running to something that's going to help you. Like, that's the whole deal. But we don't open it. We just think, oh, they just abandoned me. Do you know how many people who have left people to go get help for the person they've left? Is that abandonment or is that going to get help? You have to figure that out. Sometimes we feel like we're being abandoned and people don't care. But really, they are caring. They're going to just go get help. We need to be careful that we're paying attention to what God has. So there it is. When's the last time that you got up early in the morning? So here's the verse, verse 20. And David rose early in the morning, right? And he left the sheep with a keeper, took the provisions, and went as Jesse had commanded him. Do you know what's really important in that verse? David left his sheep, that which he was in charge of, with somebody else who took care of them so he could go do something else. Do you know that God does that? We hate that. Do you know that God would ask me to leave my sheep with somebody who could take care of them so that I could go do something? Philip did that. Philip did that when God asked him to go check on the eunuch. He had to leave his people, his ministry, and guess what? There's no evidence he got to go back to it. Right? But he had to leave it. So guess what happens? Sometimes God says, I need you to leave what you're doing right now and go over here for a second. We hate that. We love what we're doing. We get all the fulfillment in life in what we're doing. What if God says, hey, could you do that? And heaven forbid that it happened during vacation, right? Would God say, hey, Annie, why don't you take a vacation, and in that vacation, why don't you do something that you're not normally doing with people that you're not normally doing with? No, when I take a vacation, it's I want to be with people I don't know so I don't have to do anything for them. Like, that's the way it works. But what if God says, leave your sheep and go to the battle? Go to the battle, right? It says this. And he came up to the encampment as the host was going out to battle line, shouting the war cry. Isn't this really fun? He's going out at the time when the army is going out. It's very exciting. They're going to go line up and they're shouting for the Lord. Except for, here's the problem. And Israel and the Philistines drew up for battle, army against army. And David left the things in charge of the keeper of the baggage, ran to the ranks, and went and greeted his brothers. He's just interrupting the battle. Check this picture out because it's a fantastic picture. They're all lining up for battle. They're all shouting. David's like, hey, can you watch this for me? I need to go check on my brothers. And he runs into the battle line. Like, he goes and he's like, hey, I'm going to encourage you right where you are. You know that sometimes God would have you run into the battle to encourage people in the battle line and not actually fight in the battle at that moment. David wasn't going to go be part of the battle. David was going to go find his brothers and figure out about his brothers and do what his dad asked him to do. Do you ever encourage people in the battle line without having to be in the battle yourself? Or do you just always put yourself in the battle? What if David had gone and just joined the battle lines and that was good enough? It'd have been like everybody else. It'd have been like everybody else and not partaking in a battle with Goliath. He'd just been waiting. But you and I, we get that opportunity. Sometimes we get a perspective. We get to go into somebody else's battle line and we get to just encourage them. And God asks nothing else at that moment for us. Just go and encourage Andy for the battle he's in. Just do it. Send a little message. Andy, thanks for doing Simple Truths. That's not a plug. That's just saying, sometimes you get to just encourage. Sometimes it's about, hey, I'm just going to go and I'm going to be a part of what you're doing. I'm just going to go sit in your church and listen to you and just be a ministry of presence. It's not always God says, I've got something big for you to do. You got to go do it. We don't commandeer other people's battle lines, but sometimes God sends us to stand side by side with people, encourage them, lift them up, edify them, build them, all the words, right? Sometimes he does send us into the battle line to fight. Like, hey, it's the next man up thing. There's a hole here. I need you to go plug it. I need you to be ready. But in this case, David goes there with a specific purpose of figuring out what his brothers are doing, right? David left the things in charge of the keeper of the baggage, ran into the ranks, went and greeted his brothers. As he talked with them, behold, the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath, came up out of the ranks of the Philistines, and he spoke the same words as before. Only this time, it says, David heard them. Here's like, you could get so stuck in that phrase, right? Sometimes the enemy's telling us stuff over and over and over. You're not good enough. You're not big enough. You're not beautiful enough. You're not talented enough. You're not. And we're listening to it day after day after day after day, year after year, right? We've been listening to the same thing year after year. And God sends somebody up to us to encourage us and talk, and they hear what the enemy is saying, and everything changes. Right? Sometimes we talk to somebody, we're struggling with something, and God says, the difference today is David heard it. The difference today is so-and-so heard it. The difference today is I've sent you some help. Every day we're asking for the same thing. It's not happening. But one day, God says, but I heard it today. I've sent somebody today. Somebody else heard it today. Somebody else heard our cry. Somebody else, God said, that's salvation. None of these people know that victory is coming today. They've been doing this for 40 days, same outcome every day. We line up, we do the battle cry, right? And then we run back and hide. Today, though, there's something different. David's in the mix. What if you're David for somebody? What if you're David for somebody's battle? You've gotten up early in the morning. You're fighting. You're ready to go. And God has you in the battle line, and you hear something that's going to change the battle. So, hey, here's my simple truth. When's the last time you got up early in the morning to be in the service of God for the battle that He has for that day? Not when's the last time you got up early. When's the last time you got up early for the Lord? Big difference. Hey, see you next time. Simple truth.